This is Friday Evening's Undercard. On our wrestling show today, Honkytonk Man wears suspenders, Don Morocco meets his acting agent, and Hulk Hogan makes a rare television appearance. Welcome everyone to Friday Evening's Undercard. I'm Gentleman John. He's Electrifying Eric. We're your hosts. Eric, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good, pretty good. Ready to knock out another episode of primetime wrestling.
Ready to rock and roll?
Like the Rock and Roll Express.
Like the Rock and Roll Express. We got some big news coming up about them, but we're not going to let that out just yet.
Not yet.
So, we're on April 20th, 1987 episode of Primetime Wrestling. Now, we start off the show. Bobby Heenan is not wearing his sparkledy jacket and bow tie this week.
Very disappointing.
Very disappointing. I was shocked. I could not believe he was not out there in the glittery jacket, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we're so used to, I think our recurring things we're finding as we watch these primetime wrestling. It's kind of like, what outrageous outfit is Bobby Heenan going to be wearing this week?
Yeah, and this week, I mean, it's just basically almost like a black T-shirt.
Yeah. But of course, he's still selling, this whole 1 year anniversary thing, which is, of course, going to be like the recurring gag of the show.
Yeah. I don't have anything else from that first segment. You got anything else?
No, I mean, it's just your typical, if you watch primetime wrestling enough, they kind of have a set sort of template for how they kind of do it. They introduce everything. They sort of get like their recurring little gag they're going to have for the week, and then we move right into the action. Yeah,
right on into the action. First match this week is the Honkytonk Man. Going into the WWE Hall of Fame this year, Honkytonk Man, against George the Animal Steele. This was from a Superstars of Wrestling taping, March 21st, 1987, at the Thomas and Mack Center in Las Vegas.
Well, fun fact about March 21st, 1987, I turned 4 years old that day, so what better way to celebrate it than the Honky-Tonk Man and George the Animal Steele?
In a building that was made very famous for the modern WWF audience in 2011.
Oh, yes. I do believe a certain pipe bomb was uttered there.
Yeah, this, tattooed fella wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirt went and sat cross-legged on the big stage and let everybody know exactly how he felt.
Yeah, I wonder whatever became of him.
He's at that, he's appearing at the Chicago Comic-Con thing this year.
Very nice.
The, what is it? C2E2? It's the same one Cornette's going to be at.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be there. Like, Pro Wrestling Tees is doing some sort of a booth. I think I don't remember if it's $20 or if it's $40 for a picture and an autograph. Probably 40.
Yeah, I would expect it's on the high end. But it's interesting you mentioned the Hall of Fame with Honky Tonk Man going into this year, because actually this match, even though it's not really that great of a match, it's filled with Hall of Famers. Like, everywhere you look. We have the Honky Tonk Man, we got George the Animal Steele, we have Jesse Ventura and Bruno Sammartino on commentary, and we have one of the greatest managers of all time, the Mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart.
Is George Steele a Hall of Famer?
He is. I actually looked that up before the show. I believe it was 1995 he was put in.
Oh, so he would have been one of the really, really original ones.
Yeah. That was what I was trying to think, was he in there? I was like, I looked it up. Sure enough, there he is. So,
Honky was in a really, really different ring attire in this one. He had like suspenders. And I was just completely confused by that one, because I don't think I've ever seen that look on Honky Tonk Man.
Yeah, that kind of got me too. I don't know if that was like something he was trying out at some point, or kind of an odd look from what we're really used to with him.
Well, and I was even wondering if this was like a really old match, like maybe it was taped in '86 or something. because of that. And so I was actually kind of surprised to see that it was taped, just, what's this? I'm not good at math. 8 days before WrestleMania 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for at least the first 3 minutes of the match, they have no contact with each other. It's just the Honky-Tonk Man running around and George Steele chasing him.
Yes.
Which you don't really see now, although it might be better than some of the stuff you do see.
There could be an argument made. Yeah, I mean, really, there's not much to this match. I mean, it's Honky Tonk Man being the very cowardly heel. George Steele kind of chasing after him, getting sort of taken advantage of at times. Not really much to it, to be honest. Far from a technical masterpiece.
No, I mean, I just have that Honky Tonk wins via countout at 6 minutes, and that basically there was no wrestling hold for the entire match.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about really all we can say about that one.
Yeah, there's just not anything there. Next we get another Ken Patera package.
Part 3.
Yep, part 3 of the Ken Patera series. He blames Bobby Heenan, obviously, and then you get a pretty solid promo from Heenan afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, the Ken Patera story is going to be something that recurs quite a bit during this era, and I mean, it's their best to try to get him over as a babyface now, to try to sort of explain away his former actions. I think, what's odd with this is that, in an era where wrestling, we're still in the kayfabe era here. You protected the gimmick as best you can. They're kind of, really bringing in real life events, which is something, we're used to seeing every week today. But, 1987, that's still kind of odd. And, to me, the one thing that kind of doesn't really make this work for me is, you're blaming Bobby Heenan for everything, but, he wasn't there. It wasn't like Heenan was urging him on. So, I don't know. It kind of, it doesn't hold up well, frankly, and at least to me.
Yeah, I mean, kind of standard WWF stuff for the era, and I mean, obviously that's what Heenan is saying. He's like, I wasn't there. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So I mean, in one respect, you're trying to get Patera over as a face, and Heenan actually comes off being logical, making the best point, saying, "Hey, it's not my fault." So. Yeah, I mean, clearly this is not, spoiler alert, this is not going to lead to a massive main event push for Ken Patera. So,
No, definitely not. For our second match of the night, we get a masterpiece. Outback Jack against The Raider from a Wrestling Challenge taping in Columbus, Ohio on March 11th of 87. And me explaining that takes longer than the match took. Yes,
the devastating clothesline to the back of the head finisher.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really anything else to say about this one. I mean, it was a squash. It went about a minute.
Yeah.
So, after your squash here, you go into a Coco Beware promo. In this promo, he sounds like an AME preacher. And please, somebody out there, don't take no offense to that. I know a bunch of AME preachers, okay? But he's he almost sounds like the kind of preacher that you kind of parody on a TV show, right? Because he's doing all the and does, and saying brother all the time.
So it's like if you transformed Hulk Hogan into an AME preacher and gave him a bird, it's this promo.
Yeah, something like that. And said and a lot.
And of course, I mean, it is no coincidence that Coco would be parroting something because, he is the Birdman.
Oh, I don't think I ever thought of it that way.
Just want to put that out there for everybody listening.
Oh, man.
80s wrestling, folks.
80s wrestling. Just the finest.
I think when we have nothing else to say, I think we just shrug our shoulders and say, you know what? It's 1980s wrestling. There you go. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. We'll do the Bushwhacker gimmick. You say 1980s wrestling, and I'll just say 1980s.
Yeah, exactly.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to pay some bills. If you want to follow us on social media, we can be found on Instagram at fridayeveningsundercard, on Twitter at fundercard, on Facebook by going to facebook.com/fridayeveningsundercard. You can reach us via email at fridayeveningsundercard@gmail.com. Please have a listen to our interviews with Ohio Valley Wrestling stars Tony Gunn, Sam Thompson, Kings Ransom, and Callie. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and give us that 5-star review on iTunes. It'd mean a lot to us. Now, let's get you right back to the action. All right, so after the Coco Ware promo, you get a match. You got Brian Blair against Moondog Spot, and this is from the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland. That building has been bulldozed in the time since.
Yeah, I thought that, this to me was actually a fairly entertaining match. A lot of action. Actually, at least when I watched it seemed like the crowd was really into it.
Yeah, I think the Capitol Center there in Landover was one of the primary buildings. I mean, that was like a monthly town that they did. They would run Boston and New York and Philly and D.C. and maybe Pittsburgh. Like, those were the big towns that they were definitely making sure to get to every month.
Yeah, this was certainly said, for a match that on paper you would say, hey, it's Brian Blair versus Moondog Spot. You wouldn't think this would get the crowd into it, but they seem pretty hot for it. So, which just added to the action.
Yeah, matches are always better when the crowd's really hot and really into it, or at least they seem better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it just gives it that extra little bit of juice almost to with whatever you're doing. Everything seems bigger when the crowd's really into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, the only note I have, I don't know what you have, I just have a note that Blair wins on a sunset flip off the top rope.
Yeah, I think what was interesting, the match was joined in progress. And I'm probably assuming that, their tag team partners wrestled another match on that same card, I would assume. But, yeah
probably
it was
so.
a good, good kind of back and forth match. Good action. Yeah, definitely a nice little match.
Yeah, and after the match, you get a Hart Foundation promo. Danny Davis, Bret Hart, The Anvil, Jimmy Hart, and Gene Okerlund. And the main takeaway I got out of this was they were talking about Danny Davis screwing over the Bulldogs.
And we learned that he was in the Cub Scouts and belongs to the Kiwanis Club.
Two great things that we always need to know about our heels in professional wrestling.
Yeah, you know what? I think the next time I see a meeting of the Kiwanis Club, I'm going to ask them, why do they support heels in pro wrestling?
You should. I think that would go a long way.
I think so. I'm going to go demand. You know what? I think I'm going to be a broadcast journalist like Bobby Heenan, and get some answers.
Oh man, I don't know if you got this far in the OVW show, The Clash in the Bluegrass, but Gilbert Corsi was sitting there at the announce table and he called himself a broadcast journalist, and I popped.
You know what? We need more broadcast journalists in pro wrestling today.
Yes, it is fantastic. And the funny thing is he legitimately is a broadcast journalist.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Man, we're going way off here in this one, but I will get back. He worked for is it WNCT, the ABC affiliate in New Bern?
Really?
Yeah, he worked for them for a couple of years.
Wow.
Now, how he ended up there, I have no idea, because he went to school at like Eastern Washington. I really hope I got that one right. It was somewhere out in Washington. I do know that.
Nice.
So how he ended up in New Bern, North Carolina, I have no idea.
Well, you take a wrong turn somewhere near Topeka, and next thing you know, you're in Eastern North Carolina.
Next thing you know, you take a wrong turn on Highway 70 out there in Middle America. Anyway,
well,
at this point,
speaking of wrong turns,
dude, we are at your favorite segment of the week.
This is, I've been just, what my life misses is the fact that, Fuji and Morocco did not get more of a run in their acting career. There has to be some conspiracy. Maybe the flat earthers know more about this. I don't know. But if they would have had more shows, every Emmy Award would have gone to these two. They would have made movies. Every Oscar would have gone to them. Heck, if they took this thing to Broadway, it would be Tony after Tony after Tony. I cannot say enough about these two.
Don Morocco and Mr. Fuji would have been making major motion pictures and sitcoms, baby, taking it right to the pay window, baby.
And I mean, I just love it. The only thing I have to understand is they're already making these segments if they've not found their agent. Usually you find your agent and then do that, but I digress.
Yeah, and somehow Okerlund was in this one.
Well, and I mean, they visit a really critical part of 1980s wrestling, the Hulk Hogan Rock and Wrestling cartoon show. You have to, you cannot discount its impact on this era.
No, that was a big deal back then.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think today we would sort of look at it and go, man, this is ridiculous. They're doing a cartoon show, but, I mean, talk about something that helped drive folks to the business or just another extension of the business. I think it just shows how big pro wrestling was at this time in the 1980s.
Yeah, I think for the mainstream, like nationwide, I mean, this was really about as big as wrestling ever got.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and you think about that era, even of, like, cartoons from, like, the mid-'80s to, like, the mid-'90s. If you were any major pop culture icon for a kid, you had a cartoon show. Like, I remember the short-lived one where they had, I think it was like Bo Jackson, Wayne Gretzky, and Michael Jordan on a cartoon show. I mean, the Mario Brothers had a cartoon show. The Ninja Turtles. I mean, so the fact that Hulk Hogan and pro wrestling had a cartoon show during this time, massive.
That was a big deal, yeah. And now Bo Jackson, that is a name from the past.
Talk about absolute beasts from the 1980s.
Almost like almost mythical name from the past.
Absolutely. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but kids, if you're listening, do yourself a favor. Go onto YouTube and watch Bo Jackson for, like, his peak. Maybe one of the greatest athletes of all time.
For sure. No doubt. And if you're an adult listening to the show, go watch the 30 for 30 because
Absolutely.
That's incredible too.
Not as good as the 30 for 30 on Ric Flair.
No, but maybe a little more upbeat.
Well, yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, because the Flair one gets a little deep.
Yeah, it hits you in the feels, that's for sure. Speaking of hitting you in the feels, Miss Elizabeth.
Miss Elizabeth. So this whole segment here is an Intercontinental title segment. So you start off and you've got Bobby Heenan and Monsoon. They're talking about the Savage Steamboat match. Heenan says that Savage was wrongly beaten, that Steele's not a licensed manager. And that was one of Heenan's big things, was the whole licensed manager thing. He went into that when he was in the AWA. He went into that all the time when he was in the WWF because, this was a real thing. And so, why is just this guy coming down to the ring with Ricky Steamboat? And so basically, Heenan says that Steele shouldn't have been allowed at ringside.
The more I think about this, I think I'm going to go update my resume tomorrow and include, accomplishments and, professional items. I'm just going to write that I have my professional wrestling manager's license.
There are a handful of states out there that still require licenses for wrestlers and managers and stuff.
I think I'm just going to get something made over at Staples real quick to keep in my wallet. Preferably laminated, make it look legit.
Yeah, like the who was it from Parks and Rec, the Ron Swanson thing where he's at the park. I'd do whatever you want.
Yeah, I can do what I want, Ron. Here's my permit. Maybe that's what George the Animal Steels said. It says, "I can do what I want, George."
Yeah, probably. Well,
written in crayon.
Yeah, green crayon that the same man probably ate to get his tongue green.
With probably some backwards letters too. The fun part is he was actually a school teacher outside of pro wrestling.
I was about to say that. It's like you talk about like a completely backwards gimmick. He's like a master's educated school teacher in the state of Michigan, and he's playing this guy who's just and then go eat a turnbuckle.
Or maybe he wasn't acting. Maybe that's just what teachers are like in Michigan. I don't know. Never been.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I guess it could be that way.
I feel like Elias right now cutting a promo on the hometown somewhere.
He has been doing that a lot lately.
Yeah, I gotta admit they're pretty good. It's good stuff. But man, we're going off the rails this week.
Yeah,
So back to
we're
Miss
all over the
Elizabeth,
place.
the first lady of professional wrestling.
First lady of professional wrestling. So yeah, you get the interview with Liz. She says that Macho Man's really angry, and the whole thing with her, the whole thing that sells it so great is that she sells it so great. Like, she looks like she is like terrified of what's going on.
Well, I mean, well, I don't know. This came across for me when I watched it, knowing what I've read and have heard about their relationship at times. You wonder how much of it at times was an act, how much of it was like life imitating art.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to figure.
It can be a little uncomfortable looking back on it a little bit. So of course we go from a relationship that looks to be a little bit difficult right now to one that's like, right out of a Norman Rockwell painting. If Norman Rockwell ever painted a picture of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and his wife, Bonnie.
Yeah, so you've got Ricky Steamboat and them in there, and he's bragging about winning the belt. And then they say that they're having a baby.
They're having a little dragon, actually.
Yes, little dragon, who we would see in not too many years in his costume on WWF television, and then in years later from there, wrestling.
Yeah, I think from now on, when people announce, like on Facebook, they're having a child, they should just announce they're having a little dragon. Can we get that to start? I think that would be a lot cooler. Like, take the picture, the ultrasound picture, and just, like, Photoshop Ricky Steamboat's head onto it.
I don't know how that would look. It would look pretty weird, man.
I think it would look pretty awesome, actually.
And so, obviously, this is going to be, like, a pretty important thing going forward.
Absolutely it is.
The whole Ricky Steamboat and his wife thing.
Well, and also, eventually down the road, it's going to be the birth of his son that's going to actually be the reason why Steamboat eventually loses his title behind the scenes. So,
yeah, and I don't know. It was weird. I mean, I think they knew that this was going on before WrestleMania, and they wanted him to win it, but he wanted some time off, and time off and being a champion just doesn't really go together.
No.
And so that's sort of how that went.
But yeah, and then of course we have Randy Savage, who just, freaks out.
As he always does.
Yeah, I actually just want to say, he's at this era, he's just being normal Savage.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a really, strange guy during this period.
But, once again, this has got to be, in an era where you had some really strong promo guys. We'll joke about Hulk Hogan saying, brother, all the time, but, those Hogan promos worked, but
they got it over.
But Macho Man, gosh, his promos in this era, this is like the golden age of Macho Man promos. Like, you could probably take absolutely. Like this, like, 2-year period and, like, pretty much any classic Macho Man promo that people, like, post online or you'll see on YouTube, it's from this era. And so can't say enough about his work at that time.
No, absolutely. It really, really quality stuff. And even his work in the ring, for Hogan. But hey, we'll talk about Hogan in just a minute here.
I know. Can we just be excited we're finally getting Hulk Hogan on an episode here?
We are finally getting Hulk Hogan on an episode. But hey, first, we got to talk about Bobby Heenan's anniversary cake.
Yes.
Was it a rectangle cake, like a big rectangle sheet cake?
I think so.
So it's this big rectangle sheet cake, I think. And what else does it have on it but a small animal?
Not just any small animal, a weasel.
Was it really a weasel? Because I wrote down that it looked like a squirrel.
This was a cake decorator. They're not a, animal expert.
That's true. But yeah, so it was, yeah, okay, sure. Weasel. Yeah. He has a cake with a weasel on it.
And, it's a sheet cake in pro wrestling. Wonder what's going to happen later.
Yeah. A funny story about Bobby Heenan and the whole weasel thing, and I don't remember where I heard this. It was probably from Cornette or during one of the various Bobby Heenan tributes, right after he died. Apparently, when he was in the AWA, when they would go to all these towns, he was getting so much heat that, everybody wanted to say Weasel sucks and stuff like that. So he actually hired his own people to set up a gimmick table with stuff on it that said Weasel sucks and Heenan sucks and T-shirts and hats and posters and stuff.
That's incredible.
I feel like, man, why not?
I mean, I just love the fact that he's drawing so much heat. I mean, at times nuclear level heat, and then he's still finding a way for people to buy products that he's making money for them hating him. That's brilliant.
Well, and see, back then, obviously nobody would have known that it was him doing it, right? They would have just thought some little entrepreneurial fellow was sitting out there with a box full of T-shirts that said Heenan sucks, right?
Hey, I mean, exactly.
But yeah, you got to hand it to him with that. I mean, that's pretty cool that you get your own heat on stuff that you're making. So it's like, man, they want to buy these Weasel Sucks shirts. Maybe I should make my own shirts that say Bobby Heenan sucks, and I'll sell them and I'll make the money.
And I think too, I mean, it just shows that the level of heat that Bobby Heenan could draw was just over the top. And I think that's why he was so successful. If you wanted to get a heel over, you make him a part of the Heenan family.
Absolutely. I mean, it worked for Andre overnight.
Yeah, you don't have to do almost anything. Just be attached with Bobby Heenan. But yeah, we'll come back to that cake, I think, in a little bit.
Oh. I thought that happened here before the match. So anyway, we have a big match. Big match. It's the first time, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the first time Hulk Hogan's been on TV since WrestleMania 3.
Yeah, I would probably say so.
In a match, I would almost guarantee it.
Yeah, I mean, there might have been a promo or something.
He wasn't wrestling some jobber on Superstars.
Yeah.
And obviously there wasn't a Saturday night's main event because that's in, I think, 2 weeks coming up. So we get a 6-man tag match, and I'm gonna set the stage here so we get everything in it. It's Hulk Hogan, Billy Jack Haynes, and Rowdy Roddy Piper against Hercules, who is going against Billy Jack Haynes at WrestleMania, Paul Orndorff, who is he with Heenan at this time? I think he is.
I believe so.
And Adrian Adonis, who's going against Piper at WrestleMania.
And also, I mean, this works too. I mean, you get a former feud between Hogan and Paul Orndorff.
Yeah.
So, and I think too, I mean, I'll admit, I don't have a lot of real memories of Orndorff's run in WWF other than what I watched later. To me, I always kind of associated him more as a WCW guy in kind of the early to mid 90s.
Right.
But yeah, actually, in his day, a pretty talented worker, and he had really good look.
Incredible look.
And also supposedly went toe to toe eventually with Vader in a fight and actually won. So pretty tough guy in and out.
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
So I think he was wearing shower shoes when it happened too.
So this match is from Boston. It's from the Garden, March 7th of 87. Obviously, it's the last Boston show before WrestleMania. So they're hyping you up for the Mania card, right? You have 3/4 of the WrestleMania 1 main event in this match.
Yeah, you do.
Hogan, Piper, and Orndorff. And just one note, and then we'll kind of get into the ins and outs of the match. This match was announced in a way I have never heard an elimination tag match announced. When it was announced, they said this is the best 3 out of 5 falls with a 1-hour time limit.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever heard that one before.
Yeah, because now, I mean, you would go to Survivor Series and you would say, well, it's the best 4 out of 7 falls, right?
Right.
Or 5 out of 9. But yeah, so that's an interesting way to announce the match. I don't know if it's a terribly useful way to announce the match, but it's an interesting way to announce the match. And one thing that sets this match apart from what you see now is that even though these are 6 legitimate main event talents, only Hulk Hogan gets entrance music, which I think is, I mean, it's unheard of nowadays. Nowadays, even the job guys have entrance music, which is crazy, but, you know.
Yeah, I think it just shows, how crazy over Hogan was in this period.
Yeah. So, the match starts, basically it just starts out as this huge brawl, just going crazy. Hulk Hogan goes to Adonis, Billy Jack Haynes goes to Paul Orndorff, and Rowdy Piper goes to Hercules. They beat each other up for a minute, and then they clear the ring. The baby faces clear the ring.
Yeah, I think a good kind of, hot start, and then things will kind of settle down a little bit, and we'll kind of get into the match.
Yeah, so match starts, Piper and Hercules in. Piper gets a tag on Hogan, does a lockup with Hercules. Monsoon calls him Hercules Hernandez. That's interesting for this time because they were really just going with straight Hercules.
Yeah, I wonder if that was intentional or just maybe a bit of a little bit of a mix-up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to cover these matches, if you will. You get a tag to Billy Jack, and then the heels tag in Orndorff, heels tag in Adrian Adonis. Billy Jack Haynes does a huge backdrop to Adrian and then body slams him. Then you get a test of strength, I think, between Piper and Orndorff, which is weird because those are not two. Well, Orndorff is, but Rowdy Piper is not really somebody you would expect to do like a test of strength, right?
No, and I mean test of strength. Talk about a solid, pro wrestling gimmick that's kind of gone away a little bit today. But always a staple of pro wrestling, certainly from that era.
Yeah, you don't see that hardly ever anymore. At one point, Monsoon makes his standard comment that this had to have been like a running joke for him or something that he did just to entertain himself, because he makes his standard comment, there should be 2 referees in a tag match.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I mean, yeah, okay, sure. Maybe there should be 2 refs in a tag match, but it's like every time they get to a big tag match, Monsoon says there should be 2 referees in a tag match.
Well, because if you've watched pro wrestling for any amount of time, you know how observant and on top of things pro wrestling referees are.
Well, and I do understand that, but I mean, at some point maybe he would just let it go, because it's like once every 2 weeks he brings it out. There should be 2 referees in a tag match.
At a certain level, you should write a letter to President Jack Tunney.
Yeah, you should even speak to Jack Tunney when you get to the back.
Yeah,
that's what he should have done. He should have said, fans, you should write a letter to Jack Tunney if you think there should be 2 refs in a tag match.
We should write a letter to Jack Tunney tomorrow about that.
Is he still living?
Either way, we'll write the letter.
And send it to the Titan Tower. Care of Jack Tunney.
They're going to think that this will get lost in the mail for 30 years?
Yeah, I know. That'd be hilarious. Especially, I'm sure the post office wouldn't do it because they have no sense of humor. But could you imagine if you could convince somebody at the post office on that stamp that validates the thing, if they could set it back to 1987?
Oh, that would rule.
Set it back to, whatever, April 25th of 87. They'd be like, what's this?
But yeah, I think it is a bit of a recurring gag, like you said, and I think it just sort of sets up. I mean, in this match, you're going to have a lot of, wild, kind of out of control action at times that I guess you'd probably want 2 refs to settle things down.
Yeah, Hercules does a huge lariat on Billy Jack. You get a blind tag to Piper. Crowd goes crazy. Adrian Adonis does, one of his standard spots where he does the upside down thing over the top rope, which is a ridiculous spot if you think about it, but he does it. So anyway, then you end up with pretty much everybody in the ring, and then you get Rowdy Piper and Adrian Adonis counted out after they sort of all go out. Piper gets a big cheer, as he's walking out for allegedly his last match in the Boston Garden. Because, if you remember, they were running this gimmick where he was retiring after WrestleMania 3.
And as we all know, pro wrestling retirements, when it happens, it is final. You are done. You never come back.
By God, after the match they announced for WrestleMania 35, I hope Kurt Angle comes back. Did you see that one? I know it's like the show's like going on right now.
I have not yet watched it, actually.
I wasn't watching it. I saw it on Instagram. Apparently, because last week Kurt Angle says he's retiring after Mania.
Right.
Apparently, his last match, of all the people in WWE right now that they could pick from, he picks Baron Corbin.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's like...
That'll put butts in seats.
Oh, I mean, people were going to like light chairs on fire at MetLife Stadium if they didn't get to see Kurt Angle against Baron Corbin.
Yeah, I mean, that's just... Wow.
Put him against Roman Reigns. Roman's not doing anything.
Well, I guess he's going to take on Drew McIntyre, probably.
That'll be just a beautiful match.
I don't know. I mean, yeah. I guess, the question is, who do you want to put Angle with? I mean, I guess since he's had so much trouble with Baron Corbin, let him just vanquish him and then go out the conquering hero. So,
yeah,
but not exactly a match I would super look forward to.
No, they're not putting anything on the card that I'm really looking forward to, honestly.
No, I mean, the only thing, frankly, I'm kind of hoping they might listen to the fans and have Kofi go over. That'd be pretty cool. But we will see.
With Daniel Bryan's plywood belt.
I don't know. That belt has grown on me. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Because it's all organic.
It is all organic with hemp.
Yeah. And I guess we should be talking about hemp since this episode of Primetime Wrestling is on 420.
Yes. I wonder if that was a thing in 1987.
I don't even know if it was.
Anyway, so you get Hulk Hogan and Hercules in to start the next fall. And Hogan beats Paul Orndorff with an inside cradle. It was real quick, little segment here. And then they beat up Hulk Hogan after the fall.
Uh-oh. What happened? I don't know what Hulk Hogan will do when he's getting overwhelmed and is beaten up. What does he ever do in that moment?
Does he actually Hulk up?
Well, it's not, he does a little bit of it. Not like, I wouldn't say this is the greatest hulking up ever, but, there is some shaking involved.
Oh, yeah. So you get a little spot in between where Hercules pins Billy Jack real quick.
Right.
And then obviously now it's Hogan and Hercules as the last two in the ring. Hercules does a backbreaker. Then you get the Hulk up. It's just a clothesline to a leg drop. You don't get the big boot. Bobby Heenan takes a bump. And really the last note that I have is that Hulk Hogan did not have his belt with him when he came down to the ring or when he left.
Yeah, that was kind of weird. Be interesting to know why he didn't. That's, just sort of strange. You would think he would have his title with him.
Yeah. I don't understand why he didn't have the belt with him. This match, and I think this is probably because we're so used to seeing stuff done this way now. I was surprised with how the match played out because now, they would probably just do some standard formula where Hogan has to wrestle all three guys.
Yeah, I think it was. I think when I looked at the match, I think it was a pretty fun match. I mean, frankly, everybody knows how this thing's going to go. But, yeah, it was a nice match. And, for once, we get to talk about a Hulk Hogan match on Primetime Wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, come on. 1987, Hulk Hogan's not going to be doing a job on TV. Hulk Hogan's not going to be doing a job anywhere in 1987.
Hulk Hogan wouldn't do a job right now in 2019.
No, probably not. He did do a job to Sting, though, I think, in his last match at TNA, didn't he?
Yeah, he might have. But I think that's just an era everybody just kind of wants to forget.
Yeah. I do remember he wrestled that match in blue jeans.
That's like the wrestling version of the Gawker trial.
Ew.
Have a fun mental image, everybody at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, have fun with that. Man, I wish they could bring Hogan back. Honestly. Bring him back in a tag match, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you could have somebody to really work it, yeah, I think it would be, I don't know, it would kind of be cool to see him have one last moment in the ring with Real American blaring and, everybody gets wrapped up in nostalgia and forgets all the weird and not so nice things he has done in recent history.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. You could do something weird, and they should have done this with the Undertaker, because New Japan does this a lot, where they'll have the older wrestlers still wrestle, but they're doing 8-man tag matches, right? So they're doing like 2 spots. So I don't know, what do you do? Like Hulk Hogan, John Cena, and 2 partners, whoever you want to have, doesn't really matter, against whoever. You just bring back a couple of Hogan's old opponents, or maybe one of Hogan's opponents, one of Cena's opponents, and you run the match. The 4 new guys can be the ones bumping all over the place. Hogan can do the shove off from the collar and elbow, where he pumps the muscles up, and then what, you let him do a big boot for a pinfall.
As long as we have a really good hulking up moment.
Yeah, he's got to do a good Hulk up. But see, I don't know if he could do the leg drop anymore because of his back.
Yeah, that would be a little problematic.
I think he would just have to. I wonder if he could do like an elbow, though. Like, could he do the big boot and then an elbow? Or even just do the big boot and pin the guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I wish people would Hulk up more in things. Like, I don't know. I think it would be awesome if you're like watching a boxing match and a guy just like kind of tanks for a couple rounds, and all of a sudden just decides to Hulk up and knocks the guy out. Like in a hockey fight, do it. Or, I don't know, in your accounting meeting during the day. Like, your quarterly projections aren't what you want, so you Hulk up and you turn them around,
You should Hulk up during a tour one time.
You know what? I should. Actually, you know what I should do? I should have, at a key moment, the, General George Meade hulks up and defeats the Army of Northern Virginia at the Battle of Gettysburg.
That would be a good one. Like, you could Hulk up down the middle aisle of a big bus.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, give, like, some middle schooler the big boot.
I don't know how well that would go.
Well, the kid's got to sell it. I mean, if he no-sells, it's going to look terrible.
I think we have just about reached the end of this episode. Can
we just go ahead and wrap it up and put Bobby the Brain Heenan's face into the cake and call it a night?
Oh, yeah, I did forget about Heenan's face.
Because it is a cake in pro wrestling. We know what's going to happen here.
Yes. Back then, maybe you didn't. Now, somebody's going through the cake, right?
Well, there's 2 things I know in life. Like, there's certainties. If there's a wedding in pro wrestling, something's going to go wrong. And if there's a cake, somebody's being put through it.
Definitely.
Unless it was the Ric Flair 70th birthday cake a couple weeks ago.
Well, they got put through that in the after credits segment.
Okay, well then at least that cake was put to good use.
Oh, you didn't see that part? They released it on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
It was Jinder Mahal.
Now that makes sense.
He comes down, and I think it was Angle that put him through the cake.
But yeah, I think this was a fun, solid episode. I mean, the first 2 matches were not instant classics by any means, but yeah, I think if you look at the the Blair Moondog spot match, and then the main event, pretty good stuff. And of course, it's always fun when Bobby Heenan gets pushed into a cake. Yeah,
it's always, anytime Heenan gets it bad, it's always fun.
So I think that's probably about it for this episode.
Yeah, just a couple things, a couple notes to end it. Obviously, this is the first time we've seen Hulk Hogan on TV. That's that's a big deal for this era. Obviously, with very few exceptions. If you wanted to see Hulk Hogan, you had to go to the arena.
Yeah, they're not giving away Hogan for free.
Not giving away Hogan for free. I do not understand what the build is with Don Morocco. Okay, this is, what is this, the 5th episode of Primetime that we've covered? And he's been in every single one.
Because they're the greatest.
Maybe 4th episode, whatever.
They're the greatest wrestling segments of all time, that's why.
Best ever. So anyway, he's been in all these. I have no idea where they're trying to build. The last match was a great build for WrestleMania 3 if you saw it live when it was broadcast in Boston. Because apparently they did broadcast those local, the big arena shows. They'd broadcast them in New York, or they'd broadcast them in Boston or Philly and whatever. They do a good build for Macho Man trying to get the Intercontinental title back. They bring up the thing with Ricky Steamboat having kids. That's obviously going to be a big deal moving forward. Continuing with the Ken Patera thing.
Wait. Ricky Steamboat's got kids? Is he Heath Slater?
Well, at the present time, as this episode was recorded, he did not yet have kids.
Oh, okay.
That came later.
Yeah.
They build the Hart Foundation as the tag team champions. And one thing that was, I don't understand it. Maybe they were hyping it somewhere else. Or maybe it was in, like, commercials that we didn't see, because obviously we're watching it without commercials, so maybe it was in the like local promos or something. There was no mention of the Saturday night's main event.
Yeah. And I think for me, what kind of stuck out too, I mean, for most of these episodes we've had for the last couple weeks, Demolition has been featured, and Demolition's not on the show this week.
That is definitely true. Yeah, Demolition's not here. I guess maybe that was just to give us sort of a break from him, so that when we see him again, it's like, oh, yeah, I remember these guys.
Yeah, and of course, too, I think, we watch these shows, the booking and the way they were promoting talent is so different from what I think we're used to even 20 years ago. So I think, it's a lot of pre-recorded stuff. It's kind of, it's not the product you're used to seeing today.
No, it's not even close. Like, not even in the indies.
No.
Do you see anything like this?
Although, we could actually, I think we should do is do some dramatic recreations of Fuji Hospital, any of the Fuji Morocco skits, and bring it onto the indies. I think, it could be a winner.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if you could. I don't think, like, we would have to figure out, like, who we're going to be, because I don't think me and you could get away with pulling off a Fuji accent.
No, we would have to take a inspired and artistic take or a tribute to Mr. Fuji.
Yeah, that's probably a good way to do it.
But I think it could be just go ahead and start printing some money here.
Print the money. We'll do it at Ricky Morton's School of Morton television taping.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, brother, you got anything else for this one?
No, I think that's it.
All right, man. Always good recording. Folks, we're glad you listened all the way to here. I'll talk to you again next time.